Are you interested in innovative education and diversity in school models? Do you see a need for something different to bring about a reformation in our current education system? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join us for this special summer series where we will introduce you to the HERO Project. HERO stands for Heartland Education Reformation Organization and is focused on providing support for unique faith-based schools. These creative Christian learning environments, such as homeschool co-ops, microschools, and hybrid schools, are popping up all across Kansas and throughout the Heartland. The HERO Project offers continued support for this movement. I am your host, Dalena Wallace, founder of the WISE Network and president of AIM Educational Collaborative. Welcome to our summer series of WISE and Otherwise, where we will be highlighting the unique role of the church in supporting a reformation in education through the HERO Project. Today I have with me Harold and Brent from Kidvation, and they offer amazing resources for youth and students who are interested in entrepreneurship and life skills. And they're going to tell us a little bit about their program that they have. And we're going to see a little bit more about their faith and how that is incorporated. We're doing a series with WISE and Otherwise that's really focusing on faith-based schools and the resources and partnerships that are there between the church and these creative educators. So Harold, let's start with you. Tell me a little bit about your business and what made you decide to start this.
Sounds good. So our business or our organization is Kidvation Global. At the very core, we're an innovation program. And so we're a project-based learning curriculum provider, basically in the ed tech space. And so we teach students between the ages of 8 to 15 about innovative thinking and how to apply it to real-world pathways. And those pathways include youth entrepreneurship, social activism, research and development, and global collaboration. And so we have a school-based and a faith-based program. And so we're really about just getting kids to tap into their imagination and their innovation, and then to actually put stuff out into the real world. We feel that they have a contribution to make to society, and they don't have to wait until they're adults to do that. And so that's the whole gist of our program, is just really speaking life into students and to empower them to do stuff now and not to wait. And then as far as just what was the other question as far as my faith?
Yeah, I know in conversation, we've talked a little bit about how your faith is really important to you, and you're able to kind of weave that into the program that you've developed.
Most definitely. So we are a faith-based organization. Myself, Brent, Michael, we're the three co-founders, all believers. I've been a believer since, been going to church since 5, 6, 7 years old. And so faith is a big part of my everyday lifestyle. It's the way that I operate in everything that I do, the way that I treat people, the way that I talk to people, the way that I interact. And it's definitely something that we incorporate into our organization with the way that we treat our employees, other clients and stuff that we work with. And so, yeah, faith is the basis for everything.
Brent, tell me a little bit, what's your role in the organization, and what led you to want to be a part of this?
Yeah, so my title is the wonkiest title of the three of us. I'm the Chief Imagination Officer is my title. Take that however you'd like. That's my role. Is I mainly work with curriculum and helping us develop our curriculum plans for the schools that we work with and the organizations and the churches. And much like Harold, we all came together with an idea that we really wanted to empower young people to speak into the world. And as we started doing this, what started as entrepreneurship, social activism, research and development, making those things happen, it really began to evolve into also a faith-based approach that, those things that I just mentioned all deal with, we'll say, the world's economy. The God's economy can be a little different than the world's economy. There are priorities that God has that isn't always the same as those of the world. And so the idea that what if we could empower young people to speak into God's economy, to be able to speak into the challenges that face faith in our world and actually be able to take action in that. And it actually kind of stems from my own testimony. When I work with young people, particularly youth in the church, a lot of times you'll have kids that they're used to hearing these really dramatic stories about somebody that got on drugs, went to prison, found Christ, and now they're totally changed, and then you got the kid that became a Christian when he was 8, and he's like, well, I don't have that, I don't have this incredible transformation story that I can share with people. And that's really my situation. I don't either. I became a Christian when I was 8 years old, and raised in that environment. But I tell people that I had my great awakening when I was in my 20s. I was a believer all as a child and in youth, but my great awakening in my 20s is when I moved to Los Angeles, and I became involved in a church there that was a block off of Hollywood Boulevard. And I got to see sort of some of the challenges of society very close to the surface, and the issues that we were facing. And I just got this desire to really get into the game and get involved in my faith in a real, tangible way that I had not done as a young person. And as we started thinking about Kidvation, one of the thoughts we had is that so often kids, particularly in the church setting, are viewed as more as consumers. They're there to take in information, learn about their faith, get a foundation. All that's very important. I don't want to slight that in any way, but they're not really seen as providers, like that they're going to go out and do something. They're just intended to be consumers, not producers, and our view is, why don't we allow young people to be producers in the church as well, and actually have a role to play? And so our curriculum that we do with churches and faith-based schools is helping young people figure out how to speak into God's economy with programs and ideas and projects that they develop that will then have an impact, and get them into the game now, and not when they're old, or not when they're in their 20s like I was, and be able to speak into their faith in a real, tangible way as a young person, so they become a consumer and a producer in their faith environment.
That sounds amazing. I love it. Can you give me some examples of what those types of projects would look like?
Yeah, sure. I can speak of one team. Matter of fact, they just had their capstone presentations not too long ago, about a week ago. And this group, they created water bottles called Holy Hydration. And it had like a logo on there and like different Bible verses and things like that. And that's one of the ways that they wanted to get their faith out there into the world, and to just show people that you can be bold about your faith. And I mean, these are 9 and 10-year-olds that did that are already so bold about God, and they just want people to be able to walk around with a water bottle with a Bible verse on it. And I mean, that's the way that they can evangelize as a child. So that's one example. Brent, did you have another one you wanted to share?
So the very first sandbox that we used for our faith-based curriculum was actually my church, where I attended, and we did it with our youth program there, just to help us kind of work out the kinks, test it out, see what parts of the curriculum were working well, what parts weren't. And there was a team of kids there that all attended the same school, and they had been talking for a very long time about wanting to start a Bible study at their school. Public school, and they were always like, well, we don't think it's permissible. We're not sure if they'll let us, blah, blah, blah. All the things that they think they know, but they really don't know. And then we started really going into our applied imagination curriculum and looking at, well, what are ways that you could start a Bible study at your school, and what would be permissible? And let's get it up on the board, and let's talk about ways to approach this that might be something that people in your school that don't know Christ would actually find intriguing or interesting, and how, not just hitting them out right out the gate, like, come in and learn about Jesus. They may want to have another approach, that makes it a little more appealing. And so they go through and they really think creatively and innovatively about how can we insert something like that into our school. And so that would be another example. Harold's is an example of a product. They actually created a product they could sell in the marketplace that speaks their faith. It could be a program or a project, like we're going to start a Bible study in our school where there isn't one, it hasn't been one. And we're going to do it in a way that makes it palatable for unchurched kids to maybe want to come. And then they go through the process of planning that out. What's that going to look like? What are we going to have to do? Do we need any funding? Do we need to get permission from people? What does the process look like? And they go through that whole thing. And then in both cases, in the case of the product and the case of the program, it culminates in what we call a capstone presentation, where they put their whole plan together and they present it to, whether it be the church body or whether it be a panel of like sharks that might be in the business community that they could present it to and get feedback, but also maybe get support for what it is they're wanting to do.
That sounds so amazing. I love how you're getting the kids involved right away and creative and thinking outside of the box, solving problems, active in society. all those things. And I love how you use the sandbox of your church as you were kind of launching and building and
Mm-hmm.
fine tuning everything. Do you have other examples of working with churches, and what does it look like if a church was interested in saying, oh, we'd like to implement this somehow in our community? What would do they have to have a school already to use your curriculum, or is it like a week-long program? I guess I don't know time frame wise and commitment from the church, what's involved there.
Harold, do you want to take this, or you want me to?
We can tag team.
Okay, go ahead.
So as far as the church, I mean, typically we've seen it done like through like a youth organization, like a ministry, a youth ministry, and so it could be done during like their time that they meet. Typically in a school setting, it's a semester long program, but our curriculum is very customizable, so we can customize it to if they needed to do it in a shorter time frame, or if they needed to do it like in a weekend or something like that. We can totally do that as well. And then I'll speak to a new partnership that we are taking on with an organization called Next Generation Impact. This is a faith-based nonprofit, and what they do, they set up Bible clubs into public schools, and they work directly with churches. And so that's the way that the Bible club actually gets set up: is that they find a church, they find a school. They train those church officials and those church members to actually implement their curriculum with the students in an after-school setting at public schools. And so we're partnering with this organization to pretty much marry our two curriculums together. They're more lecture, we're more lab. So they're kind of we lay down the foundation, and then we show them actually what to do with that faith. And so we're really excited about this partnership because they're already in several states, they're in several countries. And so with us kind of joining forces, I think this is going to be a very dynamic partnership and really get the church involved more in the community. Yeah.
Wow. I
And
love it.
in addition to those aspects, there's also the faith-based school setting. And so in that setting, there's a lot more leeway in what can be done. And so it doesn't necessarily have to be an after-school program there. It could be a class that they offer during the day as an enrichment class kind of situation, or a subject matter that they tackle, kind of a module that they do with their daily routine for a semester, or even for 9 weeks, or even 6 weeks, depending on how in depth they want to go. And it still touches on a lot of academic concepts, but it does it through a faith-based lens, so that, again, they're working in God's economy and they're working towards God challenges, not just everyday worldly challenges as they go through the class.
Great. So you mentioned it's a semester-long program with the schools that you're working with. And is there curriculum, like in what form does the curriculum come? Is this content that's online? Is there physical stuff? And then is there training involved for teachers that might want to utilize your curriculum?
Yeah, so we actually have what we call a full curriculum, which is 36 lessons, and then we also have an accelerated curriculum as well, which is 18. And so we created the accelerated curriculum for the micro school and hybrid school setting, just because they do things a little bit differently. Sometimes they do stuff in 6-week spans, 9-week spans, and so that's why we created that accelerated version. But yes, it's all digital, other than what we call our imagination field guide, which is like a little hard copy, almost like a journal of inspiration. It has some of our applied imagination principles in there, inspirational quotes, and just space for students to go in and jot down ideas, inspiration, Bible verses, whatever comes to them that they just want to put in that book to have as a keepsake. But like I said, everything else is strictly digital. We do have a train the educator model. And so our training looks like, about an hour and a half, 2 hours virtual, or in person. We like to travel sometimes too. So if it's somewhere we can drive, we'll go in person and meet with the educators in person. But yeah, and so after that training, they get all the materials that they need: teacher's guide, student facing slide decks, which are on that learning management system, the imagination field guides, and then what we call Zoom lifelines. We definitely like to create an ecosystem. We don't just hand over the curriculum and just say, see ya. We like to stay engaged. And so at any point in time that an educator or a church official, whoever needs to reach out to us, they can via Zoom. So.
Yeah.
And typically we have planned reconnection points through the course of the curriculum. So we'll have our original training at the beginning, where it's just a big overview of everything. they'll get to the point in the curriculum where they're ready for the students to pick their project or their product or whatever it is. And at that point, sometimes things can get a little crazy, especially with kids' imagination and trying to hone in on things that they can really do. And so we'll usually jump back in the fray at about that point and work with the teacher and or the students too, if they want to feed it right to us, and help them kind of navigate those product choices or the project choices that they're going to do. And then we touch point again, usually near the end when they're getting ready for their capstone presentations and making sure that that's all tracking and that the logistics are on track for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I wonder, oftentimes when I'm talking to school founders or education entrepreneurs like yourself who've developed a product or a business, they feel like there was like an impetus. Like, what was it that launched this program? Like, how did everything finally come together? How did you three know each other? And the connecting point there that kind of launched this. I'm just curious, was there like an intrinsic motivation beyond some of your life experience and things that you had?
Man, do you want the short version or the long version?
Give me the details.
I know. Yeah. So we were all working in Norman, Oklahoma. I was with an organization. I was leading a community center, youth recreation center. And so kind of like Brent stated earlier, that's my background, youth development and community engagement. So after school programming, summer enrichment, expanded learning programs, all the things. Brent was like in the entrepreneurship innovation field. Michael had another nonprofit that he ran in Norman, Oklahoma, mainly working with teenage students in the field of like youth entrepreneurship, passion projects, things of that nature. And Brent came along and was doing some stuff with Michael, helping some students start businesses and things of that nature. I got connected to Michael and Brent just really honestly just trying to expand some some teen programming at my center. And I connected with them and we would collab on some stuff. And so really from there, we just kind of started dreaming, like, what would it be like to work together? I think we were all at a point in our positions where we wanted more. We just kind of saw where God was really wanting to enlarge our territory. While it was great impacting students in Norman, Oklahoma, we really felt that by joining forces, we could really just minister to the entire world and not just Oklahoma alone. And so really that's what got us dreaming about working together. And we all literally all took a leap of faith and left our positions and joined forces in October of 2022. And ever since then, we've just been going at it with Kidvation. That was kind of the expedited version, but
yeah,
but that's kind of where things led. I mean, we just all came together. We all shared the same vision. We really wanted to impact students via school-based and faith-based curriculum, and just really take this thing across the world. So.
I love
Dalena, the only thing I would add to that is all three of us had a global vision for what could be done. And that global vision, particularly as it relates to the faith-based curriculum that we do, we just got real excited about the idea. Of course, we want to work with kids all over the world in entrepreneurship and helping to turn, people around in their generational poverty and things like that are big pieces of what we're about. But the faith-based piece, and I'll just paint a quick picture of what we were thinking when we came in, imagining Kidvation curriculum happening in multiple countries with multiple schools. And then imagine those schools, and there are many in Mexico right now. One of our founders, Michael, who's not on this call right now, is preparing to fly to Mexico this coming week to be part of capstone presentations that are going to happen at about 10 to 15 faith-based schools in Mexico, where they're going to be presenting their projects to a panel. Michael will be there as one of those panelists. And the idea that imagine if you had kids involved in a faith-based program in Mexico, kids involved in that same program in the United States, in Africa, and you start forming teams of students that are one from each country, are all part of one team. And then you give that sort of international cohort some God-sized challenges. And you're like, okay, guys, take this on and let's see what happens. And to me, the idea of giving young people a missional mindset that's global and letting them actually practice that with kids from other countries in real time, and they're all working towards a God-centered challenge as a team with other kids from other countries. It broadens their horizons in incredible ways. but then it also shows kind of this idea that, hey, we're all on the same team here, and we're all working towards, God's economy here and trying to bring about his will, and being able to do that collaboratively with other students from other countries in real time. We're not there yet. That's what we're working towards, but that's kind of the big idea. Like, imagine the impact, not only on those kids, but
Right.
even on the world, to have that kind of thing
Yes.
happening.
Yes. So first of all, I love the collaboration that the three of you have, that you demonstrate to these students. You're each coming from different backgrounds with skills and experiences and able to work together in a strong partnership to go further and to expand your efforts. And so I think that's just amazing how you're really modeling that for students. And I'm all about collaboration. We're always
Yep.
stronger together.
Yep.
We can do so much more when we're working together. So you mentioned having an impact in the world and global impact and things like that. I'm curious about the sort of impact you've seen. Do you have some personal stories from some of the students who've used your program, the families or the educators? What are you seeing? Is this making a difference in kids' lives?
Most definitely. Brent, you wanna take it, and I'll tag in.
Well, I was actually going to let you start with Javier, but you want to just start there? Because I
Yeah,
think that's
for
a
sure.
great initial story to
Sure,
share
for
about
sure.
just an example of an impact on a young person.
Yeah, most definitely. So when we very first started to pilot our program, we did it at a public school, inner city school in Northeast Oklahoma City, predominantly African American school, low socio and economic status in that area. And they went through our youth entrepreneurship pathway. And so this was very different for these students. This is a curriculum and stuff that they've never even experienced before, project-based learning, like in a public school setting. And so we had about 40 or so students, grades 6 through 8, that went through our youth entrepreneurship pathway, learning about all the facets of entrepreneurship, from ideation to creation, marketing, budgeting, all the things. And so we had one student in particular. He was on a group and a student team, and so their idea was to create an inspirational clothing brand called Hope Apparel, and that actually stands for the hope of people everywhere. And so, great idea, great product, everything. And so it comes to the day of the capstone presentation, and so we have the news there, we have all parents, all kind of people, and for whatever reason, all of his teammates decided to flake on him that day. And so he was just so scared to get up there. He did not want to get up there and do his capstone presentation in front of everybody. But one of the teachers pulled him to the side and just gave him the Rocky speech. And he got on stage and just did an amazing job. And he actually ended up winning the capstone presentation.
Oh,
And so
wow.
now he's selling his clothing brand locally and globally. We have a e-commerce site that we've created called the Marketplace of Ideas. And so we have all student products, programs, and projects that are on that site. And so his clothing brand is on there. And I mean, it was just so great. And then the superintendent, she actually ended up purchasing shirts for the entire faculty. And they surprised him.
Oh,
Yeah, it was like Spirit Week, and they surprised him on Twinkie Day, and they all wore the shirts and surprised him. So
oh, that's so
it was just
great.
really great. Yeah, it was such a feel good story.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
great.
I think maybe on the other side of that coin, the curriculum is kind of unique, and it's a little different than maybe what a typical regimented school curriculum might be. I mean, it's very hands-on, project-based, and real world. So they're actually making things with the intention of putting them into the real world, which isn't usually the case in an educational setting. Usually it's theoretical. We're going to talk about these things and maybe do some activities, but they're all within the safe confines of the walls of the school building, and that's where it stops, And ours doesn't stop there. It actually goes out in with the intention of having real world impact. And for educators that have done this, and we've seen this both at the micro school level and also at the public school level, where they have been able to get in and do this curriculum with students, and the feedback we've received is that this is putting joy back into education again for them. They're
Mm.
actually having fun working, and it also is stretching them as an educator, which sometimes even that hasn't happened because they've just been teaching to the test. They've been doing the typical things, the rote kind of stuff that you do, in school. And all of a sudden, it's all been turned on its head. And now they're actually doing real things and also learning the concepts of, the academic concepts at the same time. And so, gosh, we've had so many educators that have come back and said, this has been maybe as good for me as it has been for the students to just reinvigorate my love of education. And so, I think it's a
Yeah,
two-sided coin. I think that
that's
it can be very
important.
powerful to insert into an education setting, to get the teachers excited. It's work, and they've all admitted this is not, you're not just going to phone this one in. I mean, this is curriculum that really causes the educator to get down in the trenches with the students. But those that have chosen to really grab hold of it and run with it, it has been so rewarding for them to see that happen.
Yeah, definitely. I could see that. It's nice that it's also impacting the educators as well and challenging them. So that's great. So I'm interested. You just mentioned a little bit about how you were able to use your home church as you were kind of developing the program and things like that. Do you have support? Do you feel like you've felt the support from churches who've kind of like adopted this, like, hey, we believe in what you're doing, this mission, we see this as a ministry. Is there anything like that happening, or do you feel like I often feel like churches maybe compartmentalize, like, here's ministry and here's what it looks like. And then here's these guys over here who are doing this really cool thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, they're working with kids. Yeah, they're encouraging them in the Lord. Yeah, they're using biblical principles. Yeah, but they don't maybe see the connection there that what you're doing is also a ministry. Would you say that you have felt support?
At least from the vantage point of where we started it, absolutely. And just based on what you just said, the way the curriculum is structured, when we go and work with the church, the pastor of the church or the youth director or whoever it is that's really kind of leading things physically comes in with the students and does what we call a commissioning. And they're like, on behalf of this church body, we're going to commission you guys, this special team, like they're an action force, like this special team of students that we have assembled to take on God-sized challenges on behalf of our congregation. And we can't wait to hear from you about it when this is all over and you have your presentation and share with us. And so it's almost like, Queen and King, Ferdinand of Spain commissioning Christopher Columbus to go sail across the world. Like, we're commissioning you, go forth and do, and that's kind of how it's presented. And so at the church that we tested it in, the pastor actually came in, and it was a team of sixth graders, and there was probably about 15 of them. He came in and actually prayed over all of the students and commissioned them. And it was an official ceremony, and he did this whole like commissioning. And so they felt empowered and important, because this was something that wasn't just this little program they're keeping them busy while their parents are in big church or something. This was a true initiative of the church, and they were, as a church body, giving them this responsibility. And so I think some of them were a little nervous about it. They came out of that commissioning like, oh, this isn't playing around, this is the real deal. And it was a little bit like, there was a little bit of, angst there, like, okay, and
They just raised the bar.
Right.
no, seriously, but they were accustomed to just being entertained, and in a good way. I don't mean to denigrate that, but entertained for Christ. Like, we're going to teach them about Christ in really creative, fun ways. This was different. This was, the table's been turned now, and the arrow's been pointed in a different direction, and now you're driving the car. We're going to make sure you keep it on the road, but you're now the driver. On behalf of all of us here, and so it's like they're, students, react to that differently. Some incredibly excited, some like, yeah, like, give me the wheel. And some are like, this is not what I thought, this is a little bit much. And they had to kind of take a minute to adjust, but to see them actually rise to that and begin to feel that responsibility as students is very powerful. So that's how the curriculum is structured. So when we go into a church, that's the understanding. And usually by the time the church is, doing it, they get that and they understand, oh, this is what this is about. And I will say, for the church that we started it in, it was a breath of fresh air, because they weren't really sure what they were going to do with those sixth graders during that period. It was a time when their parents were all in a larger group setting. And to be able to insert this in and give real meaning and purpose to that time, they were very excited about it. So. And
Yes,
yeah, and that's what we've seen in other settings too. So
that's great. Harold, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I would just say too that, and I know we just kind of brushstroked it, but I think the whole e-commerce site that we've created, I think that plays a part into all this too, because it just goes back to what Brent stated earlier. It's not theoretical. Students can actually can continue on doing their project, their program, their product, whatever, and actually make real money, at least through entrepreneurship on that website. And so we know it's Oklahoma's first. We don't know if it's the world's first, but it's definitely Oklahoma's first, student only e-commerce site. And so, we have about 45 or so products on there right now from students. We have a social activism cause that's on there from a student, and we're going to be onboarding some R&D stuff here soon. And hopefully when Michael gets back from Mexico, we'll be onboarding some students work from Mexico that's on there in the faith-based setting. And so that's just going to be really great to get their ideas out there for the entire world to see and to contribute to them.
Yeah.
And I'll just add one more quick thing. Do we have time? Do I have
Sure.
just like a minute to add one more?
Yeah, sure.
So we also saw an interesting dynamic in a faith-based school setting where they actually took on what we would call our social activism pathway through a faith-based lens. And so the school, through the curriculum, actually partnered with a number of nonprofits in this was in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they partnered with a number, I would say, how many, Harold?
I think 6.
6 nonprofits. Actually had the executive directors of these nonprofits come to the school, meet with the students, talk about the challenges they were facing. And then the students developed projects that spoke into each of those nonprofits and gave them basically kind of like a game plan for how they could tackle some of these things from a young person's vantage point. And so in that situation, the school itself was able to engage in the community in a really powerful way they would not have done otherwise. And so it gave them a vehicle to connect with these nonprofits that were around them in Tulsa and begin to engage with their community as a faith-based school. And so those are some other ways that you can see where when the school embraces it or the church, it not only, it's not insular, it's not like we're going to keep this within our walls, but it's really challenging those organizations to go outside their walls and connect with their community, starting with the kids and going up from there. So
yeah. Oh, that sounds so great. So where do you see this going from here? What are long-term goals in your vision?
Oh man, that's a great question. Well, obviously we want to continue to expand. So matter of fact, once we hop off this podcast with you, I think we have 2 meetings with 2 micro schools right after this. So
Great.
continuing to scale the curriculum, locally, globally. We're in the process right now of developing a self-paced online course. Because right now our curriculum is facilitator led. And so we want to be able to tap into, the homeschool networks and just any individualized learner that wants to do our program, and it might not be at their school. So we're hoping to have that self-paced course ready to go this fall. There's talks of like a potential innovation hub for us to create like an actual innovation hub to where students can come and meet and do different things and participate in our programming. We obviously want to continue to grow our faith-based curriculum everywhere. So yeah, I would just say expansion is pretty much the big thing on our plate right now, just continuing to enlarge our territory.
And I think on the faith-based side, that global collaboration piece, I mean, people in the United States are hungry for that. People in other countries are even more hungry for that kind of ability to connect together to solve problems. And if you've got young people thrown right in the middle of that. So I think a big piece of this is to expand into more countries and then begin to figure out the mechanisms to connect those countries together so that we truly are the people of Christ all over the world working together. And it's very tangible and it's easy to see this web, happening. And we've only been at this a year, and there's 5 countries now that are using the curriculum. Now in our next year and the year after that, figuring out how do we stitch them together? How do we start plugging these countries together with each other to do global work? And so that's maybe down the line, but that's kind of a big picture of how we could see things going.
Absolutely. It's so exciting. So as we're kind of wrapping things up here, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners so that they know about you? We're definitely going to make sure that we share your website so that they can contact you. So if our listeners would be school founders and they're looking for how they can get involved and that sort of thing, or a church that says, yeah, we'd be interested in starting a program like this, you have any news for them how to get started and get involved?
Yeah, for sure. definitely reach out to us via our website, kidvationglobal.com. You can set up a meeting with us, go to our Calendly. We would love to meet with you all. We definitely want to work with anybody and everyone that just wants this type of programming at their school, at their church, that are really ready to let children speak into the world and not wait until they're adults. And so those are the type of people that we just really love to work with. And then shameless plug, kidvationmarket.com. That's the marketplace of ideas. That's our e-commerce website. And so, like I said, that's all student programs, products, and projects that are on there. They get 100% of any of the proceeds that go towards their product or program. We don't take any of it. And so we have about, like I said, 45 products or so that are on there that we offer free shipping for. So go support a local student.
Yes.
And this summer we just finished the whole round. The school year ended. We finished a whole round of capstone presentations the students did, and we're now in the process of onboarding another round of products onto that website. So by mid to late summer, there'll probably be another 10, 15 new products on there that students have created over the past semester that will be pretty awesome. So it's a neat way to support kids and their sort of initiatives, but also find cool stuff. So.
Yeah, sounds so exciting. Thank you so much for sharing about this product and not just the product, the whole program and the curriculum and everything that you have been working on. I just pray blessings on your efforts and your endeavors. And thank you for being the hands and feet of Christ and allowing students to grow in their abilities as they learn how to be problem solvers and to impact the kingdom for God's glory. So thank you for joining us on our show.
We appreciate you and the platform. So thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate it a lot.
Okay. Thanks for joining us. To our listeners, we'll see you next week.